should I take it forward, Yvonne?
Yeah, so can we talk about, Moses Kuria for a moment? Because, I mean, he's featured quite heavily in terms of understanding, the president's agenda. And I think he's probably been the most outspoken of the cabinet secretaries who've been there. Sam, there's been highs and lows, with the cabinet secretary. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that now, because we're going to hear what he actually said today.
Right.
I think other than the others on social media who have accepted and, thanked the president for the redeployment. Today we heard from Moses Kuria, and in typical fashion of Moses Kuria. But, this has also been a big move from trade and investment, and it's been, quite the ups and downs for this one. And for a very important ministry such as trade, which perhaps also has a certain element of diplomacy and, interactions with foreign nationals and investors and stakeholders from outside the country.
Right, and I think, give it to him, I think he's one of the most active cabinet secretaries, probably competing with Professor Kithure Kindiki in terms of appearance and showing up at different places across the country. But also he was very visible, especially at the start of his tenure, moving across the entire world and trying to look for opportunities. And I think if there's one person that really enjoyed their brief and their job, then it has been Moses Kuria, with all the travels that he has made and getting opportunities to convince various investors across the world. But then again, you may have realized that the past few weeks, or maybe over a month, the traveling that he used to do has drastically reduced. I don't know whether it's because probably his first phase of the first year in office, the first phase was meant for familiarization, but also reaching out to the external world. But the travels that you used to see every now and then have drastically reduced. He has been more on the ground, especially the past 3 or so weeks that he has been unveiling the industrial parks. But you look at a person that quite understood his brief. And if you are to recall, even politically as a person, Moses Kuria, he was among the first to agree to fold his parties. The remind me the name of the political party that Moses Kuria was leading. Yeah, so he agreed to dissolve it. I don't know that that was eventually implemented. Seeming this is a person who was really ready to abandon his political ambitions in as far as leading a political party, to come and join hands with the president and the party UDA. To serve the Republic in his capacity. But again, there are certain things that have really worked against him, especially how he approaches public debate, public concerns. These speeches that he has made sometimes, including today, while he was speaking from Garissa, there are certain things that he said that are quite unpalatable. You can't even repeat them here. But it is the same fashion of him, and I think it would be important to listen to what he was saying. This is palatable now. It's safe to listen to. Watch.
Mimi nakuanga na maadui wengi. Na sijali kwa sababu kwetu tunasema ndovu haiwezi kushindwa na pembe zake. Hata wakuje nani na nani, mimi kazi nitaendelea kutwanga, nitaendelea kunyorosha Kenya. And if you don't like me, anza kuadikia, I can bet one thing. Wale wanasherekea ati mimi nilitolewa kwa hii wizara. Within 6 months, wataanza kwenda kwa rais kumwambia, ai, amezidi sana, mtoe hapa tena. They will be asking for another reshuffle in 6 months time. Wallahi, I promise you. Because vile itatoanga hii kazi, na vile nitaluka hii Kenya kila pahali, kuhakikisha kwamba serikali ya William Samoei Ruto imesucceed kwa ile mipango ambayo iliahidi watu wetu. My friend, mtosheke na mjue ya kwamba kama ulikuwa unasubuliwa na mimi nilikuwa na kabisa kamoja, sebuze saa hii mimi na coordinate wizara zote 22.
That is quite confusing. Is he happy for the docket, or is he complaining because of the reshuffle? But I think, I mean, you can make your own interpretation, because when he says that anza kuandikia rais na mtu, I mean, ndovu hashindwi na pembe zake, na mtaniona ile nitarukaruka hapa nikifanya kazi, that doesn't sound like happiness. I mean, happiness is not made of that. But
you know, Sam, you remember that video of that little boy who laughs and cries at the same time?
He didn't do that.
Well, yeah, that's probably it. But, you know, even during his tenure, then we did see, and that was, you know, brought up in our stories a little earlier, about his interactions even with, you know, foreign nationals, Ambassador Catherine Tai, you know, who was in the country. It's important to point out that Moses Kuria was missing from the president's extensive tour of the United States, where he was meeting, you know, all of those in Silicon Valley. I think that was his San Francisco trip as well, and making many trade deals. And of course, the person that we saw was his trade advisor, you know, who played a more prominent role. And what we then saw from Moses Kuria was taking up a more robust and visible role locally.
Right.
You know, with all of those. And so, you know, perhaps, you know, this move is that, okay, so you're in the country, good. Okay, you stay here and you, you know, you organize this. So we see what happens now with, you know, him and organizing his public service delivery, because there's also been something that's been added towards the docket that he will now be handling. Can we talk a little bit about Alfred Mutua, who's now moved from...
Just a moment, Yvonne. I needed to clear, his political party was Chama cha Kazi.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Which, I mean, there was a resolution to dissolve it. I don't know that that was eventually done and that everyone who was in Chama cha Kazi moved into UDA.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's interesting for him to say that in another 6 months you'll be calling for another reshuffle because of the work that he's going to do. I think he's a good worker when it comes to even explaining what the agenda of the president is and promising that he's going to execute it. I just think there's certain lessons that are being served in this reshuffle to him. How he dissects that or breaks that down to understand it is going to really influence his success in the next probably many months.
And well, maybe his statement today, anyway, lessons take time. We'll see if that changes, because it's also not just what he says when he's out, you know, visiting various parts of the country. It's also what he puts out on Twitter. You know, some of the things that he says. We've seen him in a bit of an exchange with the Foreign Affairs CS when, you know, he tweeted something about what was happening in Sudan. We've seen him tweet things about his boss, the deputy president, and then delete them. We've seen tweets in the middle of the night that are, you know, ranting and raving. So, you know, like I was talking about in the beginning, I mean, it's a reshuffle, yes, and you're moving people from one docket to another. Perhaps you feel they better fit, you know, a different role. But it's also about how government is conducting itself and how, you know, they're behaving. Because there's also, of course, the issue that we have seen about foreign travel and in attempts to put that in order. So it's about how they work, how they perform their duties, how they express themselves out in public is one of those things we'll see. So let's move to Mutua for a moment. He's been in the Foreign Affairs docket. There have been some interesting things that have happened, you know, with that, including Haiti, you know, and that proposed deployment that has now been officially endorsed by the UN Security Council. And we heard from him that by January, that deployment could be coming soon. Linus, what's your take on this movement now from foreign affairs to tourism? Okay, you know, in tourism, there's quite a bit of diplomacy there and interacting with foreigners, no?
Especially the latter, and if you're talking of the way we place, we have this premium on foreign tourists than our locals, yes. So there is that element. But if we just go back to the genesis, which is Dr. Alfred Mutua leaves Azimio, Raila Odinga's side, before the election, and supports William Ruto and strikes a very good deal, which even got better when the cabinet was named. And it was named to the Foreign Affairs docket. Foreign Affairs docket, and my friend Sylvester from Dar es Salaam, who is watching us right now, just reminds me of how critical the Foreign Affairs docket can be. it is a stepping stone in other places. It is a stepping stone to the presidency. And in Tanzania, for example, they've had 2 presidents who are former foreign affairs ministers. That is Jakaya Kikwete and the late Benjamin Mkapa were actually foreign affairs ministers before they became president. So for Alfred Mutua to land this docket out of a last-minute deal with Ruto, this was a political jackpot.
Yeah.
And allow me to mention 2 other jackpot winners in the pre-election deals with William Ruto. There is Musalia Mudavadi, who ends up getting Prime Cabinet Secretary, which finally got substantive now with a real docket, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. As Leto noted earlier, you know, it was floating for a long time as Office of Prime Cabinet Secretary. And then there is Moses Wetangula, another political jackpot winner in the William Ruto political arithmetic, getting the Speaker of the National Assembly, which effectively in the Constitution actually is about third line in succession. Then there's another one, and that is Kingi, who gets the Senate speakership, which is as consequential just as that of the National Assembly. So these are four winners. And foreign affairs, in terms of profile, and I say this without demeaning the Ministry of Tourism, is actually seen as a high-ranking ministry. In other jurisdictions like the U.S., actually the Secretary of State is, I think, number 3-4 there in the line of succession. So here as well, it's not that far. Ministry of Foreign Affairs is a very critical docket. So there will be those who will interpret the moving of Mutua from foreign affairs to tourism as a demotion. Tourism will not come with a profile of foreign affairs. Say, for example, being in the UN and making those statements will not be possible. I just want us to listen to Mutua on Haiti. Yeah.
Haiti looked around and said, Kenya, please help us. Then it has many other countries, they came to Kenya. They said, Kenya, you have a history of helping other nations. Kenya, you are very good at doing it. Kenya, you are brothers and sisters. Kenya, we are dying here. We are suffering. Tumefika mwisho. Please help us. So we got a request from our people of Haiti. And as good Christians and good Muslims and good religious people, we could not turn and look the other way when our brothers who are suffering have asked us for help. So we decided we are going to go and help Haiti to lead a multinational police mission with other countries. We were in New York and other countries are coming on board.
Yvonne, you look at that. That is a reshuffle-inspiring speech. You don't talk like that on something as weighty as Haiti, deployment of 1,000 police officers to a peacekeeping mission supported by a UN Security Council resolution.
And being funded.
There'll be a very sober statement in text, read in a very sober voice, not the preacher tone. You explain quietly and gently, as Mudavadi would, for example, read such a statement. And this is the thing with, you know, the problem, and I think it's a dilemma of all cabinet secretaries. There is absolutely not pre-job training. You really have to learn on the ropes and learn very, very quickly. And also know how to present each issue. When you speak like that about such an issue, remember this is also being consumed by
the people of Haiti.
The people of Haiti, the African countries and all that. So it had better be organized, and it must also be traceable in terms of as a record. Let it be a statement. And look what every time there's something with the U.S. State Department, say President Ruto had a phone call the other day with...
There's a readout of it.
Yeah, there's a readout, and it's summarized in a very, very clear way. That is the space of diplomacy and foreign affairs. It doesn't function the same way as these other political positions. And so Mutua may have paid a price for a number of things that he may not have paid attention for. But I want to say this, Yvonne, if I could just, looking at the overall reshuffle, it is not exactly the bloodbath that Kenyans expected. It wasn't courageous enough on the part of President William Ruto. He hesitated. He withered. He actually showed lack of courage of walking the entire mile. Cabinet reshuffles, now what he has done is to walk exactly into the same path of his predecessor, Uhuru Kenyatta, who was painted as indecisive. Remember how Uhuru Kenyatta struggled with a very simple case of the sports ministry. When was it a chaser that was caught in the middle of something that is untenable in terms of proper governance. The minister really had to leave, but he still struggled, you know, almost abolishing the ministry in the process because of he felt so sorry about doing it. But for President Ruto, who has styled himself as Mambo ni Matatu, even reshuffles have to come with the Mambo ni Matatu touch. You have to look at the lecture he gave the cabinet secretaries the other day. So you give that lecture to say that some of you don't understand your dockets. So do they understand these new dockets that are being moved to? Yeah. Are they going to perform better in those ministries? I think there's a missed opportunity on for President Ruto to, you know, correct what he may not have gotten right in the first appointments. And reshuffles are those opportunities. And reshuffles are conducted at the time you are at your strongest. And politically speaking, Ruto is not vulnerable at the moment. He is in a very strong place, enjoys a good parliamentary majority, facing a weak opposition inside and outside parliament. Basically, he can get his way right now. You never know how the clouds will turn, and I don't mean El Nino some at all, how the political clouds will turn going forward. So you do these reshuffles when you are at your strongest. So there is an element of a missed opportunity by President Ruto to fix exactly what he was telling us was a problem, that I have cabinet secretaries who don't understand. So
late
yes,
do this, yeah, because he had a litany of complaints.
He specifically said that they don't understand their own dockets, and how can you advise me?
Yeah.
So this was the day to actually show the door those whose advice is not good enough. But he hesitated, and that is not a good sign.
Yvonne, I know you need to take a break, but just 10 seconds. 10 seconds.
All right.
When you're talking about Haiti, it's important to note that Alfred Mutua's statement came shortly after the UN Security Council approved the force. That was on Monday. But it was before President William Ruto made his statement. And remember, when the president spoke, he did not mention when the deployment would take place. But Mutua was very vocal about Haiti, giving prospective deployment times, talking about preparations that are underway. But then if you look at his counterparts in the Interior Security Ministry, Professor Kithure Kindiki didn't say a word. That's where policing issues fall. He has been quiet about the deployment. And even the defense CS, Aden Duale, was actually asked about it. And he said, that's not my docket. I have nothing to do with that. It's not in my ministry, so you don't speak about it. So I think it's important to just note that alizungumza na hakuwa nafaa.
Interesting observations. We want to take a break. When we come back, we want to talk a little bit more about others in cabinet and some other movements. And like we've said, a political moment perhaps for the president to course correct. Well, there's also been political undertones and perhaps a little bit of grumbling as well. So we'll talk about that When we return, we'll also be capitalizing, or is it capitulating on some of the issues when we return.